It was a Tuesday evening in late October, one of those gray, heavy days where even the air feels like it's had enough. The sun had tapped out early and the sky hung low like it was trying to press the world into silence. I remember because it felt like the kind of day you want to come home early, cook something warm, and maybe even pull your wife into a lazy couch hug before the world barges in again. I didn't usually get out of work before 6, but a last-minute client canceled their walkthrough, and just like that, I had a rare gift, an hour to spare. Rachel and I hadn't had much time together lately, so I figured I'd beat her home for once. Maybe surprise her. Maybe make dinner. I pulled into the driveway around 4:45 and saw her car already parked there, angled slightly like she'd come in fast. That was the first flag, not a full red one, but enough to make me pause. She told me that morning she had a late meeting with one of her clients across town. Said she'd probably be home around 7. I remember her exact words, "Don't wait up, it might run long." So why was her car already here? I got out and walked to the front door, keys jangling a little too loudly in my pocket. When I stepped inside, the house was quiet. No music, no TV. Just the low buzz of the dryer kicking off in the distance. Our dog, Finn, usually meets me at the door, but he wasn't there either. Everything just felt off. I called out, "Wretch." No answer. Just the faint rhythm of movement down the hall, fabric against fabric, the sound of hangers rattling. I followed it to the laundry room and stopped in the doorway. She was there, hunched slightly over the washer, feeding clothes into it like it was personal. There was this frantic energy about her, quick, sharp movements. She didn't see me right away, which gave me a second to take it in. And that's when I smelled it. Cologne. Not mine. Not hers. Something stronger, spicier. A kind of rich, peppery scent that cut through the usual lavender detergent and softener we used. It wasn't subtle either, it filled the room. And it wasn't just in the air. It was on her. On her coat, draped over the edge of the counter. On the scarf she bunched up and shoved deep into the washer like she was trying to erase it. And faintly, horribly, on her skin. Just a whisper of it clinging to the back of her neck where her hair had fallen loose. I stood there, silent for a second too long, before I said, "Hey, thought you had a late meeting?" She jumped a little, then straightened up and turned toward me, brushing her hair behind her ear like she was buying herself a second to think. "Oh yeah," she said, her voice light. "It got rescheduled last minute, so I figured I'd come home and knock out some laundry." There it was again, that tone. Too casual. Too easy. Rachel wasn't always smooth with lies. When she fibbed about dumb stuff, like saying she didn't finish the last of the ice cream, her voice usually got all defensive, all fast and breathy. But this was measured. Smooth. Practiced. I stepped into the room and nodded toward the washer. "What's that smell?" She blinked like she didn't quite catch it. "Smell? The cologne. It's strong. Not yours." Her lips curled into this almost smile. "Oh, that. Yeah, one of my coworkers, Aaron, he spilled his drink during a client lunch. It splashed all over and I ended up helping him clean it up. Guy bathes in his cologne, I swear. You know how some people overdo it." She actually laughed. Like I was overreacting. Like this was funny. I didn't laugh. "You helped him clean it up?" "Like what? Wiped it off him?" "No," she said quickly, off the table. "The booth. My scarf got in the way. It's no big deal." She turned and shoved more clothes into the machine. "It was just messy." Then she tossed the scarf in, slammed the lid down, and turned the dial like she couldn't do it fast enough. She hit the start button and stepped back, brushing imaginary lint off her sleeves. "It's stupid, honestly," she said, now smiling. "Just one of those dumb work things. Like an office sitcom moment." I studied her face. Her smile held, but it didn't reach her eyes. There was something tight there, something buried. "Was anyone else there?" "What?" she asked, like she didn't understand the question. "At the lunch. You said it was a client thing." "Oh, yeah. A few of us from the team. Jessica, Nolan, Aaron, me." "Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering." She narrowed her eyes and tilted her head. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, but I didn't sound convincing. She crossed her arms. "Because you're looking at me like I did something wrong." I didn't say anything. The smell was still there. And the way she was watching me, it wasn't guilty. It wasn't nervous. It was sharp. Like she was already prepping her counterattack. "You know," she said, "you've been weird lately. Like paranoid or something." "Paranoid," I repeated. "Yeah," she said, with a small laugh. "Like the other night when I stayed late and you texted me 3 times in an hour. And now this. It's just cologne, babe." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But something about the way she said it, cool, dismissive, too ready, it didn't sit right. "You sure that's all it was?" She rolled her eyes and turned to walk out. "Well, okay." I'm gonna go start dinner. Let me know when you're done being suspicious. And just like that, it flipped. I was the problem. I was the one making something out of nothing. But the scent stayed. Long after she left the room, it lingered in the air like a question mark I couldn't erase. Later that night, I lay in bed beside her, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in lazy circles. She was already asleep or pretending to be. I could hear her breathing, slow and steady. Her back was to me. I kept thinking about the scarf. The way she shoved it deep into the washer. The coat that was nowhere in sight anymore. The way she turned the whole thing into a joke. And that cologne. That damn cologne. It wasn't just an accident. It wasn't just a lunch spill. It was evidence. And it smelled like betrayal. After that night, something in me shifted. I wanted to let it go, I really did. I kept telling myself it was just cologne. Just a strange moment. Just a fluke. But just started showing up everywhere after that. Just a few extra hours at the office. Just another meeting that ran long. Just another evening where I found myself eating dinner alone while she texted me updates like she was narrating a life that didn't feel like mine anymore. The scarf incident should have been a one-off. Should have faded into nothing. But it didn't. Instead, it stuck to me like that scent had stuck to her neck, and suddenly I couldn't unsee the things I'd brushed off before. Like how she started getting home later on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Always those 2 days. Every week, like clockwork. Before, Rachel used to joke about how corporate scheduling was a sole K***lure and couldn't believe anyone stayed in meetings past 6:30. But now she was all about those late-night strategy reviews and off-site sync-ups. Same excuses. Same blank smile. Same glassy tone when I asked how it went. Her phone became a permanent extension of her. Not just during the day, but everywhere. The kitchen, the shower, even the laundry room. Once, I asked if she wanted me to plug it in when it buzzed while she was folding towels, and she practically jumped out of her skin. No, it's fine, she said, snatching it up before I could touch it. Just work stuff. Work had started calling more often. Or maybe I just started noticing. And it wasn't just calls, it was texts, DMs, Slack messages she'd answer with little half-smiles even while we were watching TV together. Sometimes she'd laugh at something she read and then immediately turn the screen away when I looked. It started to feel like I was living beside her, not with her. Like we were actors in a domestic sitcom, going through the motions, sharing meals, making weekend plans, but I'd missed the season finale where everything changed. She also started dressing differently. Not in a bad way, just different. She used to wear cardigans, flat shoes, and light makeup to work. Practical. Comfortable. But now she wore these sleek, fitted dresses and these sharp heels that clicked hard against the kitchen tile. She wore perfume again, stuff she used to save for our anniversaries, and even started curling her hair on weekday mornings. When I asked about it once, she smiled and said, I just wanted to feel more confident. Gotta own the room, right? Sure, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You look great. And she did. That was part of the problem. She looked radiant, confident, distracted. Like her attention was somewhere else, and all I got were the leftover versions of her. Then came the earrings. It was a small thing, barely even worth noticing. But one night, she came home wearing silver hoops I'd never seen before. Rachel wasn't really into jewelry. She had maybe 2 pairs of earrings she rotated between, and both of them were modest, nothing flashy. These were different, sleek, new, more expensive looking. She said she'd bought them on sale after work. I didn't ask questions. Not then. But I remembered them. I remembered them because 2 weeks later, she wore them again on one of her late nights. And when I asked about her day, she forgot the part about stopping at any store. Her story didn't line up. Not exactly. Just a little jagged at the edges. That's when Nolan's name came back into focus. Nolan Brooks. Mid-level manager. Back when she first joined her company, she used to mention him here and there. She said he was charismatic, old school in the charming kind of way. I remember one night when we were out to dinner with friends and someone asked her how work was. She laughed and said, well, there's Nolan, he reminds me what real charisma looks like. Everyone chuckled. I did too at the time. I mean, it sounded innocent enough. But that night, after everyone left, I remember asking her what she meant by that. And she just waved it off. Nothing serious. He's just a character. You know, the type talks with his hands, compliments your ideas like you're on Shark Tank or something. I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? But now, with everything swirling in my head, the phone obsession, the late nights, the new clothes, the weird energy, I kept going back to that name. Nolan. She'd mentioned him again recently, slipped into a story about how he really knew how to make a presentation feel like a TED Talk. I remember the way her eyes lit up when she said it, like he was a teacher she admired or a celebrity she'd met once and couldn't forget. I started checking our shared calendar. She never really used it religiously, but we had it set up just to keep track of dinner plans, birthdays, things like that. Lately, there were a lot more vague events popping up, stuff like client strategy prep or off-site briefing. Always vague, always scheduled for late afternoons into the evening, and always on Tuesdays and Thursdays. One of them had a note under it, confirm with NB. I stared at that for a long time. NB. Nolan Brooks. It wasn't a smoking G*N. Not yet. But it was enough to make my chest tighten in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. I wanted to ask her outright. I really did. But every time I worked up the nerve, she'd laugh at a text or give me that perfect little nothing's wrong smile, and I'd feel like an idiot. Like maybe I was just being insecure. Like maybe I was projecting. But the signs were stacking up faster than I could suppress them. I found myself checking her side of the closet when she wasn't home. I'd notice which outfits were missing on those late nights. I'd see the heels lined up differently or the lipstick cap not screwed on all the way. I wasn't trying to snoop. I wasn't that guy. At least, I didn't think I was. But I was starting to become him. And still, part of me kept hoping I was wrong. That all of it, the cologne, the new clothes, the late meetings, had a reasonable explanation. That maybe Nolan was just a mentor. That maybe I'd let one-off moments spiral into a full-blown story in my head. But then she started staying overnight. Twice, she said it was after team dinners. Once was a happy hour that turned into too many margaritas, so she crashed at her coworker Jess's place downtown. Another time, she said traffic was bad and it made more sense to just sleep it off after a long client event. She was always apologetic. Always casual. And both times, I didn't sleep at all. I kept staring at the ceiling in our quiet house, the hum of the air conditioning sounding like white noise over a scream I couldn't let out. I told myself I'd talk to her. Really talk. But I didn't. Not yet. Because if I did and she looked me in the eye and lied, I don't think I'd ever be able to forget that look. The moment I saw her work phone light up on the kitchen counter, I knew something was about to happen. Funny thing is, I didn't even mean to look at it. It was just sitting there, face up, buzzing quietly against the granite while I was rinsing out my coffee mug. She'd left in such a rush that morning she didn't even notice she'd forgotten it, an uncharacteristic slip for someone who guarded that device like it held state secrets. Usually it was either in her hand or tucked into her purse with the ringer off and the screen dimmed. But not that day. That day she was late, flustered, muttering something about back-to-back meetings and how she'd already spilled coffee on her blouse before 9 a.m. So when the screen lit up, it caught my eye before I could look away. It was one of those preview notifications, just a few words, enough to burn everything down. Still can't stop thinking about the hotel. That shower. No name. Just initials, MB. Nolan Brooks. My stomach dropped. I didn't breathe. For a second, I just stood there, soap dripping from my hands, staring at those words like they'd been carved into my chest. The hotel. Not the meeting or the conference or even that trip. It was the hotel. The way someone would say our place like it meant something. Like it had a memory attached to it that they both carried around and smiled about when no one else was watching. And the shower? I didn't need more than that. I didn't want more than that. My mind filled in every detail I hadn't seen with my own eyes. Her hair wet. His voice low. Steam on the glass. Her laugh. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the phone like it might apologize. It just buzzed again, softer this time, as if it were mocking me. I took a photo of the screen. Just one. Just enough. Then I locked the phone and slid it back into the spot where she'd left it. Like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just watched my life come unstitched in 10 words. I sat there for a long time. I couldn't even tell you how long. The clock ticked. The dog whined at the back door. My coffee went cold. But I didn't move. I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to throw the phone through the window, scream into the void, call her office and demand to speak to Nolan. But another part of me, the part that had stayed quiet for weeks, that had been watching and logging and doubting, told me to wait, to stay still, to learn more, because this wasn't just a one-time mistake. I knew that now. This wasn't an accident. This was a story, and I'd been reading the wrong chapter. She came home around 7:45 that night, smiling like she always did, the smell of Thai takeout wafting in from the bag in her hand. "Hey, babe," she said, breezing through the door. "You hungry?" I stopped at lemongrass. Figured you'd be too tired to cook. I looked at her. Same dress she'd worn this morning, only now with a slight wrinkle in the front like she'd napped in it. Hair still styled. Lip gloss slightly faded. No sign of guilt. No sign of hesitation. She dropped her keys into the ceramic bowl by the door and kicked off her heels, humming as she opened the fridge. I watched her every move, wondering how she did it. How she carried herself so easily while juggling 2 lives. How she came home and kissed me on the cheek while texting another man about hotel showers. "You okay?" she asked suddenly, glancing at me from the fridge. "You're quiet." I nodded. "Just tired." She smiled and walked over, setting the takeout in front of me. "You need to get more sleep. You've been kind of moody lately." I nodded again. She didn't notice anything different. Or if she did, she was too good at pretending not to. Later that night, while she showered, I sat on the edge of the bed with her phone in my hands again. She'd unlocked it earlier to check email, then got distracted and left it unattended. I didn't go digging, I didn't need to, because right there in her messages with Nolan were the confirmations. Not just flirty texts or ambiguous suggestions, but entire conversations. Plans. Reservations. Recaps of Albany, of the networking conference that I'd encouraged her to attend, thinking it might help her career. "Next time, let's get a room with a view. I want to wake up next to you and watch the sunrise. I keep thinking about you in that black dress. The way you looked when you opened the door. He doesn't suspect anything, right?" There it was. My name. Not directly, but unmistakably. The fool at home. The placeholder. My chest burned. I took **TS, sent them to myself. Then I deleted the message history from her phone. Just the new ones, not the thread. I didn't want her to know I'd seen it yet. I wasn't ready to play my hand. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, smiling. I feel human again. That meeting today almost led me. I smiled back. "Yeah? What happened?" "Oh, just a lot of crosstalk," she said, pulling on pajama pants. "Nolan went on one of his rants again. But we got through it." She said his name, casually, like it didn't mean anything. I nodded. "Glad you survived." She laughed, climbed into bed, and curled up beside me. I wrapped my arm around her like I always did. She sighed, nuzzled in, and said, "I'm so glad we still have this. You know?" I didn't answer. I was too focused on the lies curling between us like smoke. Because now I knew. I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to wonder. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was wearing perfume and smiling in my face. And the worst part? She still had no idea I knew. Once you see it, really see it, you can't unsee it. That's how it was for me after I read those texts. After I knew. I couldn't go back to normal. Couldn't smile across the dinner table or kiss her goodbye in the morning without feeling like I was playing a part in some cruel improv show. So I stopped pretending. Not on the outside. On the outside, I was still the same husband, reliable, quiet, slightly tired. I still washed the dishes after dinner, mowed the lawn on Sundays, asked her how work was with the same soft tone. I still let her think I was clueless. But underneath, I had flipped a switch. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was gathering. I started with the calendar, our shared digital one. The one we both used mostly out of habit, syncing grocery runs and dinner plans. I'd never paid much attention to her entries before, but now I combed through them like I was sifting for gold. What I found weren't gold nuggets, they were breadcrumbs. Repeating meetings labeled things like Client Strategy Review NB or Quarterly Vision Sync offsite. They were always in the evening, always on the same side of town, and always on Tuesdays or Thursdays. At first, I just noted them, kept a log. Then one Thursday night, I decided to test the pattern. She said she had a work dinner and might be late. Didn't say where. Didn't offer to show me the invite or who was going. Just kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her purse, and disappeared. But this time I followed. I waited 5 minutes, then got in my car and headed to a place I'd bookmarked earlier that day, the Monarch. Upscale restaurant known for its private booths and overpriced cocktails. One of her calendar entries had listed it last month. I parked across the street in a lot with a clear line of sight and waited. At 7:12 p.m. I saw her. She stepped out of an Uber wearing that black wrap coat I hadn't seen in weeks. Her hair was curled and her lipstick was deeper than usual, wine red instead of her everyday rose. She looked beautiful. Devastatingly so. And not for me. A tall man in a gray blazer, Nolan, I assumed, stepped onto the curb just seconds later. He was smiling as he approached her. She laughed at something he said, then touched his arm. Not just a friendly pat. It was the kind of touch you give someone when you've already shared too many secrets. He opened the door for her and they disappeared inside together. I sat there in the car, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me anchored. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was slow, steady, cold. When she got home 2 hours later, she was carrying a plastic takeout bag. "Hey," she said cheerfully. "Dinner ran long, but I grabbed you some fries." Fries. I thanked her, took the bag, and watched as she kicked off her heels and started talking about how Susan from marketing just won't stop interrupting people. She told me about some new initiative Nolan was pushing that made no sense. She even rolled her eyes at his name like she was tired of him. She was putting on a show. And I applauded with silence. The next day, while she was in the shower, I backed up everything from her phone to our cloud account. She'd set it up years ago and forgot it even existed. I knew the passwords, knew how to navigate the admin controls, and within an hour, I had access to message logs, app activity, even her location history. The location data hurt the most. There it was, Albany. The conference. She hadn't stayed at the Marriott like she'd told me. She'd booked a boutique hotel half a mile away. A suite, not a room. She had pinged there for 2 nights in a row, almost never leaving the building except once for dinner 2 blocks away at a place with candlelight and a prix-fixe menu. The messages were worse. Not the ones with Nolan. Those were short, flirty, enough to make your skin crawl but never graphic. No, the worst were the ones between her and Jess. Jess, the friend she always claimed to be crashing with. Jess, who I thought was just an alibi name, maybe made up altogether. Turns out Jess was real, and she knew everything. "He has no clue," Rachel had texted. "You think he'll figure it out?" Jess replied, "Nah, he's not the suspicious type. And even if he did, I just spin it. He trusts me too much." That one cut the deepest. Because it was true. I had trusted her. Blindly. I took **TS of it all. Not because I needed more proof, I already had more than enough, but because I needed the reminder. That this wasn't just a hunch. It was real. And she was choosing it. Over and over again. The thing that got to me most wasn't even the cheating itself. It was how ordinary she made it seem. Like it was just another part of her week. A dinner here, a hotel there. A text at lunch. A lie before bed. Like I didn't even matter in the equation anymore. That weekend, I didn't say a word. We went to the grocery store together. She held my hand. We picked out snacks for a movie night. She laughed at something on her phone and showed me a meme, and I smiled back like nothing was wrong. But behind that smile, I was working. I set up a secure folder on my laptop. Transferred everything. Created backups. Wrote dates, times, locations, made a list of inconsistencies in her stories. Because it wasn't just cheating anymore. It was erasure. She wasn't just slipping away, she was rewriting her life without me in it. And I wasn't going to let her do that quietly. It's a strange thing watching someone you love live 2 lives. Stranger still when they do it with ease. Like they're not even breaking a sweat. That week, I stopped seeing Rachel as my wife and started seeing her as something else entirely, a performer. Every word she said, every movement, every joke, rehearsed. Polished. Like she was trying to nail the part of devoted wife for a role she'd already given up caring about. And I played my part too. Husband. Supportive. Distracted. Forgiving. I laughed when she laughed. I asked her about her day. I even told her she looked beautiful one morning when she stepped out in a dress I hadn't seen before. "Thanks," she said, beaming. "I just felt like changing it up." She wore it on a Thursday. Of course she did. Thursdays had become their night. She always left in that black coat now, the one with the wide collar and belt she tied like it was armor. Her heels clicked down the hall. Her lips were always red. She'd say she was meeting Jess or going to some team thing, and I'd smile and nod like it didn't gut me to hear it. And every time she came home, it was the same routine. Takeout in one hand, purse in the other. She'd kiss me on the cheek, ask if I wanted to split a salad, then sit on the couch and act like she hadn't just been in someone else's arms. One night, while she showered, her tablet lit up on the nightstand. Another message from Nolan. He wasn't careful anymore. Neither was she. "I want to wake up next to you for real next time. No hiding." I didn't even flinch. I just took a photo and closed the message. Later that night, She curled up next to me on the couch while we watched The Notebook, of all things. I could feel her breath against my arm, her fingers resting on my chest like it meant something. "I love this movie," she said, smiling softly. "I know it's cheesy. It's a classic," I replied, voice steady. "Makes you think about what love really means." She nodded. "Like, sticking with someone through everything, right?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. "Yeah," I said. "Through everything." She leaned in and kissed me on the shoulder. I kissed her forehead in return. She smiled, unaware, maybe proud of herself, maybe relieved. But my mind wasn't on the movie. It was 3 moves ahead. I'd stopped waiting for her to tell the truth. Now I was working on the exit. A few days later, I checked our joint accounts, just to see what she'd been up to. I noticed something odd. A few scheduled payments. A small deposit into a new savings account I didn't recognize. And then a flagged message from our realtor's email. I almost missed it. She was planning to sell the house. Our house. The subject line read, "Private showing schedule update R.R. Walters." I opened the attachment. There it was in black and white. Photos of the living room, the kitchen, our bedroom, professionally staged to make it look like nobody actually lived there. A listing price. Agent notes about timing her move-in window. She hadn't said a word to me. I went outside to clear my head and ended up standing in our backyard for what must have been an hour, just staring at the swing I built 2 summers ago. The one she said she wanted for when we eventually had kids. I remembered staining it together, her barefoot on the grass, laughing at how bad I was with a paintbrush. I remembered thinking, this is what happiness feels like. Turns out it was just rehearsal. The next morning, while she made coffee, I casually asked, "Do you ever think about selling this place?" She turned, surprised. "Why would we sell it?" I shrugged. "Just thinking out loud." She smiled and kissed my cheek. "Not for a long time, I hope. I love this house." I nodded and said nothing more. Just logged the lie. That night, I canceled the listing. I called the realtor myself and told her we weren't selling. She was confused, tried to confirm the appointment Rachel had scheduled for later that week. I told her politely, but firmly, that I'd be handling the property from here on out. Then I called the bank and put holds on any joint account transfers. Set everything to require dual authorization. She had plans, but now they were ruined. That evening I printed everything. The texts, the emails, the hotel confirmations, the false listing. I stacked them into a manila folder and waited until after dinner, when she was pouring herself a glass of wine and humming along to some soft playlist on her phone. "Hey," I said, handing her the folder. "Can you take a look at this?" She raised an eyebrow, took it from my hand, and flipped it open. The color drained from her face in an instant. Her hand trembled as she turned each page, slower and slower. She got to the last one and froze. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were wide, lips parted like she didn't know which version of herself to summon. "You went through my stuff?" she whispered. I nodded. Her expression darkened. "You invaded my privacy?" "No," I said quietly. "I uncovered the truth." She laughed. A bitter, disbelieving sound. "This is insane. You've been spying on me?" "I've been living with a stranger," I said. I needed to understand who she really was. She slammed the folder shut and tossed it on the table. "This is so petty," she snapped. "You don't trust me. And now you're playing detective because what? Your ego's bruised?" I didn't flinch. "I trusted you. And you gambled that trust away on hotel sheets and deleted texts." Her jaw clenched. "You're acting like I'm the villain here." "I'm not acting," I said. "You are." She stood there for a moment, silent. Then she turned and walked to the bedroom. Came back with a duffel bag and started shoving clothes into it. No words. No explanations. Just panic and muscle memory. "You're not even going to try to fix this?" she asked, her voice breaking. "You already tried to fix it," I said. "With lies." She zipped the bag, walked to the door, and hesitated. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "I didn't plan any of this." "You planned to sell our house without telling me," I said. "So forgive me if I don't believe you." She didn't reply. Just opened the door and stepped out into the night, letting it slam shut behind her. I stood there alone in the kitchen, the wineglass still full on the counter, the playlist still playing like it hadn't noticed the room was empty. I picked up the folder and slid it into a drawer. Not because I needed it anymore. Because I already knew what I had to do next. The morning after Rachel left with her bag, the house felt wrong. Not quiet, empty. Like the echo of something had been ripped away. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my coffee, not drinking it, not thinking anything coherent. Just adjusting to the void. That's when I opened her laptop. She'd forgotten it in the rush, and part of me hesitated, still clinging to some idea of boundaries, dignity. But I had already seen behind the curtain. What was left to protect? Her email was still open. I found documents. Contracts. A seller's agreement. She'd been planning to finalize everything this week. The listing, the transfer of funds, everything. She had a timeline. A closing date. A post-move plan. It was all there. She wasn't running. She was replacing. And then I saw Nolan's name on one of the attachments, NB moving checklist. He wasn't just the affair. He was the plan. Their plan. That was when I froze our accounts. Called the bank again and locked anything with my name on it. I had legal rights and now I was using them. If she wanted a clean break, she could have it, but not on my dime. When she returned later that day, maybe thinking I'd cooled off, she looked surprised to find me there. Her eyes darted around like she was calculating which lie to use. I didn't give her the chance. I canceled everything, I said calmly. The sale. The transfers. You're not selling this house. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. You can't. I already did. Then I handed her the envelope. Everything I'd printed. Everything I'd saved. You're not starting over with him, I said. You're starting over alone. And she left. No goodbye. No final insult. Just silence and a closing door. 2 days later, Nolan showed up. He stood at the edge of the driveway like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be there. He didn't look smug. Didn't look victorious. He looked uncomfortable. Nervous even. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. I'm looking for Rachel, he said. She's not here. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard. She told me you moved out. That you were done. I didn't respond right away. I let that hang in the air. Finally, I said she lied. He looked down, hands in his pockets. I didn't know she hadn't told you. About us. She made it sound like you two were just roommates at that point. I studied him, this man who had so easily become a replacement in my wife's second life. She was going to sell this house without telling me, I said flatly. Did you know that? His eyes widened. No. She said you were both ready to move on. Well, I said I was. Just not in the way she thought. He looked ashamed. Whether it was real or performance, I didn't care. He mumbled something about being sorry, then walked back to his car without another word. That night, I burned the folder. Every message. Every photo. Every printed page soaked in betrayal. I didn't do it out of rage. I did it for clarity. Because carrying around all that evidence wasn't helping me heal, it was just holding me in place. The next morning, I opened a blank notebook. Not to track lies or timelines or locations. But to start over. To write what was mine. Because this time, no one else gets to rewrite my story but me.